So it's a massive week for World of Tanks in terms of the update news. We will be looking at both update 1.13 for World of Tanks PC along with World of Tanks console. The video will be timestamped so you can skip through various different pieces of information as to the rundown for both of the updates for this week. And of course, this is kind of the way we're going to be doing the update news from now on. We will be looking at World of Tanks as a whole. And of course, just have a look at the section that you want to look at for World of Tanks. And of course, if you play both of them, it will be kind of handy to have both of your update newses all in one place for World of Tanks. So of course, today's video will start off with the World of Tanks PC content, and then at the end of the video and at the very end, we will have a look at what's for World of Tanks console within this video. So, first things first, update 1.13 on World of Tanks PC. What is changing? Well, there are some huge changes with regards to the mechanics of certain tanks, and that being artillery. We're going to have a look at what those are, and we're going to have a look at some of the changes to some of the tanks within the game, and also some of the other kind of rebalancing stuff that's gone on within the game. So, first things first. What's going on with artillery and HE shells? Well, if you don't already know, HE shells are being drastically changed along with artillery, which you'll probably know about if you've actually watched any videos within the last month on World of Tanks from the various different content creators. Well, today, main goals of HE shell rebalancing from Wargaming were that dealing high frontal damage to well-armoured vehicles was frustrating for the commanders that basically had good armour. So any of you heavy tank players and also some of your heavily armoured TDs were having some trouble when they're coming down, hold down against medium tanks who decided that they're going to fire HE for 100 damage each time. But of course, Wargaming being Wargaming, they're going to now change it so that heavy tanks now just basically should just sit there in front of tanks and not be able to take any damage at all. And of course, that's going to make it slightly more frustrating for medium tanks and tanks that just generally don't have the pen to be able to deal with any of those. So apparently now you've just got to leave the flank if you come up against a hold down 60 TP. But other than that, we're going to be having a look at the actual mechanics and the breakdown of it. Well, first things first, HE shells. The change is to damage mechanics. Well, you can see on screen right now the sort of things that basically the shells do. So HE shells now deal damage at the point of impact. So instead of previously where they'd splash over the whole of the face of the tank and deal damage across the entire thing, they now have a point of damage. So very, very similar, well, the exact same as AP rounds. So instead now you have to aim at a specific point that you want to deal damage or more damage, so you can't aim at the bottom here and splash into the engine deck anymore like you previously used to be on a tank like the Maus, whereby you could deal a lot more damage. Instead, it now counts as the kind of your splash, and then the splash radius then goes inside the tank and you can deal damage to crew members and modules internally using these HE rounds. In terms of how the actual damage and how they've actually been nerfed is basically when you hit a shell into a heavy tank with lots of armour or any tank with lots of armour, basically the more heavily armoured the tank part is at the point that you actually hit, the more armour it's going to have, and therefore the amount of damage you do is going to be reduced significantly. So say if you hit against this part of the Maus's armour, where it's really, really thick, you'll be dealing less damage than if, say, you shot at the engine deck of the Maus, at which point you'll do more damage. So now you really do have to be pinpoint accurate with your HE rounds. You can't just flick onto a heavy tank and just expect to do lots of damage, like 100. Instead, now you'll probably be doing about 10 damage if you even get any damage at all against some of the most heavily armoured tanks within the game. Now, obviously, huge nerf to HE shells, which means, heavy should probably get better now in hold down scenarios where you can't actually pen them at all, especially if you're in 2 tiers lower, because of course Tiger 2 against the Maus, Tiger 2 is going to probably struggle with the front of the mouse, or at least an angled front of the mouse, because obviously premium rounds are in the game, and we all know what happens when you load premium within World of Tanks, whether that be on console or PC. They're both the same. You pen a hell of a lot more rounds. Now, the second mechanic within the HE shells and the changes that they've made is now HE shells will be able to penetrate screens, tracks, and the wheels of wheeled vehicles at the point of impact. So, say if you hit the side of a tank now, you'll be able to actually go through that with the HE round, whereas before it would just splash at the point of impact, and then you get damage depending on where you've actually hit. So instead now, what you can do is you can penetrate through tracks at the cost of penetration when you reach the next bit of armour. So you can shoot at the side of a tank, you'll reduce your penetration if you hit the tracks, and then when you go through the tracks you actually do less damage because you don't penetrate as far, and therefore you don't do as much damage. So yeah, basically, now, instead of dealing basically limited damage, you can actually penetrate through the tracks of tanks and also spaced armour as well. But obviously significantly less damage than if you were to just hit the flat side of a tank, depending on the armour value of the kind of stuff behind it. And one of the key things is now you can actually go through fences and destructible structures. So instead of before, where HE would have splashed against whatever it actually touched, whether that be a fence or whatever it is, now you can actually go through them, and which is really, really nice. And so tanks like the KV-2 and a lot of the tanks with high alpha that fire HE will actually kind of get a little bit of a buff, but also a nerf at the same time. So yeah, HE is going to be more fun for actually just derping people through various different scenarios. You're going to be more mobile and agile and be able to get more shots in more areas of the map where you previously weren't able to in a tank like the KV-2. But of course, you're going to be dealing less HE shell damage against those heavy tanks that are kind of hold down within the game at least. So yeah, there's kind of a big change to the HE rounds. Of course, let me know what you think of the changes. Do you think that this is awful? Do you think that it's a good change? What are you thinking? Let me know in the comments section down below. And of course, yeah, I think it's interesting. On console, of course, HE is remaining the same, and I wouldn't expect it to change anytime soon. But yeah, so tell me what you think, and we'll move on to the next bit of the video, which is the vehicles and changes to vehicles within World of Tanks. So, first things first, what is actually changing with regards to the SPGs in the game and the horrible artillery that apparently cannot get balanced no matter what they do. So yeah, what they've done now is basically you'll be able to, in every single tank in the game that isn't artillery itself, will be able to actually get an alert when an artillery is aiming at you. So as you can see on screen right now, with regards to the shell, you can see that the shell tracer is very, very big, and when the shell actually comes in, you'll get an alert like this that tells you that the artillery shell is coming in. So you've got that little bit of extra time as to when you know to actually move out of the way and avoid the shell, especially going to be super useful for AP rounds, which of course are coming back to the game on PC. And so, interesting, controversial. Do you think that they're balanced? They were in the game, then they were out, and then they're back in. So yeah, and a little bit more with that in a second. But yeah, sound detection. It's a new kind of thing. Basically 6 cents for artillery is what they've called it. Definitely a thumbs up from me. Helps you at least sometimes avoid artillery shells as much as that is possible on World of Tanks. No matter what version you play, artillery is always just super annoying. Now, second thing, brighter shell tracers. So you'll be able to actually see where the artillery rounds are coming in much easier within the game. So they come up in this kind of orange streak of light that comes across the screen. So artillery is basically going to be harder to stay undetected, and it's going to be easier for players to pinpoint where artillery is and then kind of get them out of the game, which I always enjoy. Getting rid of artillery is one of the best things in World of Tanks, and of course, yeah, I think that that's a good kind of change to artillery. I think that bringing in these brighter shell tracers is definitely a welcome change for a lot of players within World of Tanks. So let me know what you think. Of course, once again, with all of this update news, it is kind of opinion based, so very interesting to see everyone's different opinion depending on what classes you play and what game you play, and whether or not you'd actually like to see artillery changes like this on World of Tanks console or Blitz or whatever version of World of Tanks you actually play. So yeah, going to be very interesting to see what you guys are thinking about these videos as well, because obviously we're playing a little bit more on PC and doing some PC content in amongst the console content for the game. So additionally, field markers coming onto the minimap. So basically it will show kind of lines, I guess. Once an artillery shell hits the ground, a vehicle or any other object, a shot marker will be displayed at that spot on the minimap. It will be visible for only 10 seconds before disappearing, giving you enough time to spot the shot. So there you go, that's where it's going to come up, and that will tell you the field of fire. So when someone's aiming, it will basically come up for 10 seconds, from what I see anyway, after an artillery shell hits the ground, or anything like that. Additionally, rework the intuition perk or skill or whatever you want to call it. It will become a skill and be available for the loader to learn. Thanks to this feature, an already loaded shell can be quickly replaced with a different shell type. So it's been changed. It's available for non-SPG, so if you're not an actual an artillery piece, you'll be able to use the intuition perk. And so what does this perk actually do? What does it do now? Well, basically you can change the shell of your tank with a kind of lower cost of the reload. So instead of taking, say, 10 seconds, it will now take 4 seconds. So it will speed it up by 60% base. Another 6% can be obtained from the commander bonus, and then bonuses from Brothers in Arms, improved ventilation, directives, and food consumables such as extra combat rations can further increase this value up to 84%. So this is crazy for some of your tanks. Maybe something like an FV 4005, where maybe it now can be warranted to load AP, depending on what situation you're coming into. If you know that you are definitely not going to penetrate your Hesh round, then you can load AP and make sure that you guarantee more damage against some of the tanks that you'll be coming up against. And so this will work very well for those tanks that can fire Hesh, and where swapping between the rounds can mean that you'll deal more damage on average more consistently, and so always a good feature. So if you want to put that in your tanks, of course you will get an 84% increase to the speed of reloading after swapping the round, as long as you actually are already reloaded with one round. So of course if you fire, then you can't replace it. Yeah, that's basically a good feature. It's similar to console. Basically we get a piece of equipment which takes up one of the 4 slots that we get on console, and then you can just instantly swap the round and it won't cost the reload, so you don't have to reload your tank for swapping the round. This is very similar, except it takes 16% of the time to actually reload. So instead of 10 seconds, it would only take you 1.6 seconds to reload the entire clip, or the entire round from a 10-second reload, if you've got all of these additional buffs within the game. Now, there's a few changes to the shell type. So we've got 3 changes to the shell types. We've got standard HE with stun, you've got an alternative HE shell without stun, and then you've got an AP shell coming back to the game. So not only do you have the standard one where you can basically use it in all situations, it's basically the standard round that you probably want to be firing in almost every single situation. Yeah, going to be good. Then you have the alternative HE, which does slightly more damage and has the ability to damage internal modules and injure the crew. So the standard one cannot injure the crew, and it cannot deal damage to any of the internal modules, so fuel tanks, ammo rack, stuff like that. You can't actually be damaged with the standard shells, but with this alternative HE shell, so instead of getting the stun, you can now basically destroy internal modules of tanks and also deal slightly higher damage than the standard HE shells should you pen using these. Don't know what I think about these. I think they also get a reduced blast radius as well, so you won't be able to splash for as far as the standard HE rounds. they're slightly faster, but a lower trajectory, so it might be slightly harder to hit tanks as well with these. Don't know what I'm thinking. I think that this could be a round that you very rarely use. I just don't really see the point in it. And then we have AP shells. So of course these are the rounds where if you're just fed up with the game and you can't be arsed, you can just basically load these and then ruin people's days if you shoot. Then just sit there, munch on whatever you're eating, and carry on with the game for that 30-second or 40-second reload or however long it is. Then load another AP shell and just hope that you hit. So just an RNG round, basically, these two. Hope that you hit and then maybe do some damage and hope it doesn't bounce as well, because remember, AP shells bounce if they don't actually have the pen to go through the front of these tanks. So from my point of view, and what I understand, I think that you want to be firing the standard HE shells with the stun, and then maybe if you're just feeling the RNG, AP shells in something like a T92 might be slightly more fun. But let me know what you think. Of course, there's changes to the HE shells, and also the vehicles and SPGs are kind of a welcome one, I would say, except from the HE ones where heavy tanks now become stronger and more meta, I would say, so because they can't get damaged as easily. Going to lead to a lot of stalemates in corridors where heavy tanks are just shooting at each other, dealing like 20 damage per shot. Yeah, don't know how I feel about that. Maybe mediums might be slightly better to choose so they can outmaneuver heavies. Don't know what's going to happen. But of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And yeah, very, very interesting. As far as other things with this update, we've got a few rebalancing of a couple of tanks. So basically, with regards to tank balance, there is a few other things. So we've got, as far as the first thing, we've got some premium tanks that are basically getting buffs in the form of the ISU 1.13, which will get an increase to horsepower of 10 horsepower and also your shell velocity on both standard and HE, as well as higher special shell penetration, so your HE and or your premium ammunition, and also standard shell penetration also goes up with this tank, so significant ones. Then we've got the T92 light tank, which has increases in penetration on both its standard and premium. Senlac is getting an increase to view range, so basically able to spot more enemies easily. And then we've got dispersion at 100 meters is decreasing by 0.03, so making it 0.35 instead of 0.38, which is always good. Means that you can snipe, I guess, a little bit more, but when you want to be doing that in a light tank is unbeknownst to me. And then of course the M41D, the Chinese Bulldog, is getting an increase in view range of 20 meters up to 410 meters base, and a top speed increase of 3 kilometers an hour forward and 2 kilometers an hour backwards. So yeah, slightly faster, better view range, overall just better now within the current game. Then, of course, Clan Wars reward tanks are getting buffs as well. So the Chieftain T95 is basically getting faster or easier to get up to the top speed by adding 100 horsepower and then reducing its dispersion by 22%, along with the IS-5, which gets gun dispersion during movement and on hull traverse down by 17%, and gun dispersion during turret rotation down by 38%, as well as a decrease in gun depression angle down to 7 degrees of gun depression. So yeah, interesting. KV4 Kraslavsky, increase in top speed by 10 kilometers an hour, so it's an extra third faster, or at least top speed wise, and then it gets a little bit more engine power, so you should be able to somewhat get up to top speed, at least downhill anyway. Don't know how that will be in game, but of course you can put on engine power upgrades for your equipment and your consumables. And then we've got gun dispersion during movement and on hull traverse, 38% less, and hit points up by 200, along with some increases in the increases in the turret armor. So you should be able to bounce more shots in this thing. Then of course T23E3, this kind of medium lighty fast firing gun, basically gun dispersion during movement and on hull traverse down by 30%. 121B, of course the tier 10, now gets an increase to top speed and a decrease in gun reload time. So you can now go 55 kilometers an hour forward and 25 backwards, and then you've got gun reload time down by 0.6 seconds, down to 8.1 second of reload, base, and an enhanced hull and turret armor, so you can basically bounce more shots in this thing, at least that's what it's saying anyway. And then finally the M60 is getting some better hull and turret frontal armor, so you should be able to maybe bounce around, but this thing's armor frontally is pretty bad anyway, so I doubt that you'll be actually able to bounce very many at all. Then final few things with update 1.13 is that the mode selection interface has been improved, so this is you've got basically the option between two different ones, whereby you can have the random battles, recon, and rank battles, and then then the alternative is this. So yeah, you can kind of customize it a little bit more. Yeah, not too big. Minsk map is also being rebalanced on PC, so you'll be able to basically play this map by the visibility on the map being improved currently. And then some interface improvements. So we've got HP of both allies and opponents in the player list and on the minimap. So you'll basically be able to see this horribly clunky, visually disturbing piece of thing within the game. So definitely something I will turn off 100%. Not something I want to see. Of course, you can just see that anyway when you look at the tank. So yeah, not something I'd have in the game. But of course, for those of you who are interested in it, then you can do. Then, of course, we've got this, whereby you can actually zoom out using the commander camera, which means that you can zoom out further. Yeah, like this. Very interesting. Going to be useful, of course, for those of you who don't have the zoom out mod within World of Tanks. And also, you can get this tactical view. All of them can be turned on in the settings at this point in the game. So just go to general settings, turn them on if you want to see them. And then finally, replacing the blueprint fragments have been changed. So they've basically made it so that when creating a blueprint for a specific vehicle, you don't have enough national fragments, you can replace them with national fragments of the allied nation at a 1:6 ratio. So if you have Chinese national fragments to create a blueprint, then you can use Soviet national fragments instead, but you will need 6 times as many. So for example, if you needed 1 Chinese fragment, it would cost you 6 Russian ones. So that's basically it. Hopefully you did enjoy this kind of update news for PC. Of course, we'll move on to the console one now, and I will see you just in a second. So, console World of Tanks, what's going on this week? Of course, it is the controversial Action Heroes week, which we covered in yesterday's video, whereby Wargaming are trying to sell 3 premium tanks and some commanders and customizations for 65,600 gold. And of course, you'll get my opinion if you want to have a look at that in yesterday's video, which will be linked at the end of this one. So take a look at that if you're interested in seeing what that was all about. But of course, we've got some other things to look at in this video, being that we are getting new/revamped maps. They aren't actually new, but they're just maps that we had previously, and then they're calling them new, but yeah, they're 5 returning maps that have been basically upgraded with the graphics engine of the current game. So yeah, the maps being Overlord, Westfield, El Alamein, Scorpion Pass, and Ghost Town, with Scorpion Pass being made bigger, so it's now 1.5 times bigger than what it was previously, and it's been renamed to Hellfire Pass. So yeah, interesting. Hope you guys are, happy about that. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the new maps, or the revamped maps, or the returning maps, whatever you want to call them. They are coming back to the game, and let me know in the comment section down below. Then, of course, the other controversial thing being new ammo in the form of missiles or guided missiles, whatever you want to call them. They are coming to the game for Cold War or the modern tanks, or whatever, game mode wargaming want to call them now. Missiles acting as like mobile artillery. Russian tanks and also the US light tank line will be able to, that is new, that's come into the game very soon, we'll be able to use missiles, guided missiles, whereby you have a laser pointer, you fire it one direction up in the sky, then you aim at the tank you want to hit, and then the missile will come down onto the top of the tank, at which the armor is less, and so you'll do more damage or pen the actual tank with these missile rounds. And of course, yeah, basically artillery that normal tanks can use. Yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below, and what you think about that if you're a PC player, whether you'd want to see that on World of Tanks PC or not. Definitely wouldn't recommend it myself anyway. Then, of course, on track to Poland, we've got 25% more XP for Polish tanks if you play on either the medium or the heavy tanks, and you'll get some bonus silver operations that we covered in yesterday's video as well. Then keycards get re-rolled on the 29th of June, so there'll be new or re-rolled premium tanks within the bundle, so you can get a different kind of list of premium tanks out of the keycards. Long haul, of course, carries on, 75 multiplayer battles to get some loot boxes. Yeah, not particularly worth grinding out 75 games if you don't actually just enjoy the game in the first place. We've then got premium tanks for free XP, so you can get the T-78, the M48A2, the Kaiju OI, the AMX M4 MLE 49, which is quite good and maybe one you want to pick up, the KV4 by Kreslavsky, the Sturm VK3601H 105, and the Guardian STG. Of course, you can pick these all up for free XP, but the ones I would look at, if it was down to me, would be the AMX and also the Sturm. The Sturm being a tier 6 with a 105 that reloads super fast and does high damage. Yeah, pretty broken. Mercenary tank, spaced armor all over it as well, because of course, why wouldn't slapping spaced armor over an already pretty good tank and then giving it a 105 make sense? So yeah, interesting. Then final bits are Silver Rain Challenge running this weekend for 4 days. You'll be able to get 50% silver bonus on your first 20 battles of the day. So of course, use your premium tanks within this day, and if you have got premium Polish tanks, then you can make use of the bonus silver operations from the Polish tanks on track event, and the 50% silver, and your premium time, and for having or completing the season pass, which also grants a plus 25%. So yeah, make use of that if you want to earn loads of silver for those first 20 battles in a day. And basically, to complete this, you have to win a battle. So it's only on a winning battle, and you can do that 20 times. So unlikely that you'll actually be able to complete more than 20. So yeah, pretty much 50% extra XP every single day for those 4 days. Then, weekend bundles sale. Which ones are the best ones? Well, the first one is the best one in my opinion. You get the Ragnarok, which is broken. Then the Gloria IS-5, which is pretty good. Striker, Canonian Jagdpanzer, not a bad one either. 14,475 gold is a hell of a lot better than 65,600 for 3 premium tanks that you could have got for free. Yeah, not bad. I think then we've got Team Hail Hydra IS-6 FV4202P, which is pretty mediocre or average, below average, medium tank. Then we've got the HMH ISU 130, 13,620 gold, probably the second best bundle to buy this week. And then the final one being the Hunter's Pack, where you get the Minotaur KV5, the HWK30, which is a super good light tank, actually really underrated, and then the HMH Huntsman Centurion, which most of you will probably already have, and that's 12,200 gold, just under. Probably the one I'd avoid out of the both of the other ones. So yeah, remember, if you've already got tanks, you'll get the gold value back if you already have some of the tanks within the bundle. So if you already have the Gloria IS-5 and the Striker, you will get the Ragnarok at a 60% discount, and then the price of the other two at that 60% discount will be refunded to you in the form of premium or in the form of gold. So yeah, interesting if you want to pick up some of those at 60% off. Weekly deals, of course, the Volk T44 and the King Tiger, nothing really to talk about here. And then, of course, the community streams on Friday and Monday, respectively, as of the recording of this video. Then we have the personal offers, which are the AMX CDA 105, which is decent, the IS-2, which is also decent, and the LE KPZ M41 90mm, which is the Black Dog, basically, unskinned. Yeah, an interesting one. Best ones out of these, CDA is pretty good, and the IS-2 is really good. Black Dog is also okay. It's like a big, heavy medium. And of course, we covered the other bundles for the Action Heroes yesterday, so if you want to have a look at that, you can do. Other than that, that is all of the news for all of the World of Tanks versions that I play. And of course, if you want me to do Blitz content as well, in there every week, then let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, let me know what you thought of this video. If you want to see some more content and you aren't already subscribed, then subscribe down below and like the video if you did. Check out some other content on the channel which is relevant for both PC and console, so that should be on screen right now. Other than that, hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.